now the merge is done, is the transition done, or are there still things have to be done? Or it's like ETH2 just live now and all the old stuff's dead?
Yeah, this is complicated. I'll try to give you a really brief answer. So the merge itself is done.
Yes.
There's nothing else to do on the merge. The Ethereum roadmap has evolved quite a bit. The running joke in my days when I was doing Ethereum stuff is that every time Vitalik had a shower, the roadmap would change. It's not quite that volatile anymore. There's like a pretty agreed upon roadmap forward with 5 steps, the first of which was the merge. So there's kind of like 4 more big steps to come.
But what did the merge do? What was that?
The merge was the transition to proof of stake. So
Okay.
it was hot swapping out the consensus mechanism from proof of work to proof of stake. That's all it did, nothing else.
And that took 3 years?
7 or 8 years of research and 4 years of development.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're gonna love the rest of the roadmap because it rhymes.
Yes. I can't even get them all right, but merge, verge, surge, purge, and I'm forgetting
Splurge.
one. Splurge. Right. Of course, the splurge comes last.
So it's like
Everything in Ethereum is rainbows and unicorns and
I was
rhymes.
going to say, is there a song?
Don't you love it?
And
I'm sure there's a unicorn dance song.
There's a unicorn dance song that they're going to do at the next Dressed as Fluffy.
I'm telling you, the more
They all
I realize
mean
this,
things,
the more I
though.
realize like Ethereum has got its marketing game on lockdown.
I
like
mean,
all this
a
stuff.
rhyming roadmap. It's incredible.
And
Well,
rainbows
it's,
and unicorns.
And the words mean stuff. Like
Yeah.
there's actually like
Right, there's substance behind it.
there's
There really is.
substance,
Yeah.
yeah.
What's that book? Something Huxley wrote.
Aldous Huxley.
Yeah, what's the book he wrote?
Brave New
Brave
World.
New World.
Yeah, so that's Brave New World. Ethereum's Brave New World, and Bitcoin is 1984.
This is the utopian and dystopian views of the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, and as I said to you before, like Ethereum, sometimes it feels like it's defined by unity. There's a lot of unity around things, whereas
So
Bitcoin is defined by like the lack of unity, the fight.
We say Ethereum is a big tent and Bitcoin is money for enemies. So I think that's accurate. I agree with that.
I think groups look homogenous from the outside, and from the inside they look heterogeneous. So they probably say the same about Bitcoiners. Yeah, that's just like a common sort of like phenomenon.
I think the thing about Ethereum as a community, to the extent that such a thing exists, is it is complicated and it does feel diverse on the inside because there's all these projects that are Ethereum adjacent. So like is Polygon part of the Ethereum community? Is Near or Polkadot? Some of these projects kind of move in and out of Ethereum's orbit. It's messy. Whereas Bitcoin is Bitcoin, basically.
Okay, so we've done the merge. What's next?
I don't even know what the next one is.
I don't either. I'm trying to remember. I think dank sharding is kind of the next thing. Oh, no, sorry. The first thing is withdrawals. So 30-second recap, right? So the Beacon chain launched in December 2020. All that did was proof of stake, but so validators could deposit ETH on the main net, the existing running Ethereum network, and then people who wanted to run validators, and then that would give them a validator kind of slot on the Beacon chain. So for whatever number of months that is, 19, 20 months or something, that did its thing, but it's not coming to consensus over anything meaningful. They're just running, and it's just literally testing the consensus mechanism. Then the merge happened. So now the security of the running Ethereum network has been transferred. As I said, all the proof of work miners have been shut down. That's been transferred to proof of stake. So now the consensus is still running on the Beacon chain, but it's now securing something. The next step is enabling withdrawals.
Well, so you have to stake to be a validator?
Yes,
and
exactly.
32 ETH.
Correct, yeah. So that's one validator slot. It's a fixed amount. But yeah, so the next thing is enabling withdrawals, which is supposed to come in something like 6 to 8 months. So basically, once you deposit now, right, you cannot withdraw those funds. So they're locked on the Beacon chain, right? What you can do, and this is actually, it's interesting, this interesting nuance here, you can exit your validator, right? So what that means is that you, like, let's say that you are, we won't name names, but you're a regulated sort of entity or company who, for whatever reason, like doesn't want to censor, doesn't want to produce like censored blocks. We'll talk about the censorship thing, I think. Your only other option would be to exit your validators and stop validating, but you can't actually withdraw the coins.
So even if you exit, you can't withdraw?
Correct, not yet. But that will be enabled in some number of months from now.
And the useful thing would be what people don't want to withdraw all the coins, but they want to withdraw the
rewards,
the yield that they've generated.
Yeah, so this is also complicated. So there's two components to the yield you get when you're a validator. So one is the block rewards or the block subsidy, and the other is the fees, obviously. The fees can be withdrawn because they just land in your regular Ethereum account.
Right.
But the block subsidy cannot yet.
Okay. So what's the complexity around withdrawals?
That the funds live on the beacon chain, not on sort of the running Ethereum chain, I guess. So there needs to be some mechanism.
So is that so will both chains continue, or will the beacon chain merge into the main chain?
So both chains, so there are now two chains basically. And you, as a validator, you actually need to run two pieces of infrastructure. So the terms we use are EL and CL. EL is execution layer, CL is consensus layer.
I'm glad you're here because I didn't know any of this shit.
I wasn't following this all super closely for the past couple of years. As you guys know, I have a day job that's not strictly Ethereum related, but I've been catching up on it lately, partly because of the merge, partly because of the show, partly because DevCon is coming up. I don't want to sound like an idiot.
When's DevCon?
Next week. So I'm actually on my way to Bogota.
In Bogota.
Yeah, that's going to be
nice.
It's going to be interesting.
The cartels are warming up.
Have you got your unicorn outfit?
I mentioned I was packing for Bogota, and it was really hard because I was trying not to bring any crypto swag or ETH swag, and most of my clothes.
You're going to want to have good OBSEC when you're down there.
Yeah, I mean, of all the places to choose to put a bunch of rich crypto people, let's go to Bogota.
Doesn't seem wise.
A bunch of teenagers who are newly crypto wealthy, who've never traveled in Latin America before.
Yeah. Okay. So after withdrawals, what's coming after that?
I think the next thing after that is sharding, and this now is getting a little bit beyond my expertise.
Did you say dank sharding?
Yeah, they rebranded it. I think it's because the name of the academic.
Conrad, I think.
Yeah. So it's not dank as in cool. It's because it's actually this guy's name. But it's also, I guess,
but that's a cool name.
It's a pun, I guess. That's with everything.
That's with everything.
Okay, and sharding does what?
So the idea of sharding is that rather than having a single chain where each validator has to validate every transaction on that chain, there are now multiple chains and a subset of the validators. So the chains get broken up into sort of subnets. And so you only need to validate a subset of the overall transactions flowing through the networks. By the way, sharding is a really old idea. It comes from databases. It's been around for decades. You have some method by which you split up your transactions and your accounts across different chains.
Because to reduce bloat, to make it
reduce the load on the validators, because you want it to be easy to run a validator, basically.
So it sounds like that's probably quite a complicated thing.
That's very complicated. So the plan was originally that would be included in like an earlier phase in what used to be called the Ethereum 2 roadmap.
Okay.
And I think dank sharding is like, again, this is getting a bit beyond my expertise, but the original plan was to have something like 1,024 shards or something, and they'd all look and feel like Ethereum, and the scope of this has been reduced considerably.
Okay, and there are any risks to sharding in that like parts of the network go offline? Is it a new attack vector?
The biggest issue of sharding is that it breaks composability.
Yeah.
You want to explain composability?
Well, it's just that now
you're
literally, splitting the ledger up from a canonical ledger of record to many different ledgers that need to be reconciled with each other. And now the challenge is, how does a transaction happening on this piece of the ledger talk to, a contract on that piece of the ledger? And composability is like the nice thing about blockchains. That's what makes DeFi work. That gives you the having those settlement assurances means that these contracts are going to work together.
Right. So I agree. I think Ethereum's killer feature is composability, right? So this means that literally in a single transaction, in a single block, you can touch 3 or 4 or 6 or 8 different applications, right? And compose, both in the sense of building blocks of code and things like this, but also in the sense of assets, right? You can kind of do these wicked arcane kind of transactions that, take a flash loan here and do something over there and then like return the flash loan at the end. That is the thing that was never possible before Ethereum and is only possible on Ethereum or a system like it, right? Where you don't have shards today. And I'm specifically referring to how things work in the Web 2 world, where you have APIs and asynchronous calls and like you have this thing called the train and hotel problem, which is like, I want to book, a train ticket and a hotel, but if for whatever reason I can't, the train reservation doesn't get made, I don't want the hotel. And if the hotel reservation doesn't get made, I don't want the train. So we want these things to be bundled as a single kind of atomic operation. So it's all or nothing. This is called atomicity in computer science. And the moment you move to a sharded model, as Nick was mentioning, you have these multiple domains. And now you have these very, very, very complex asynchronous tools as a software developer that you need, where you have to fire off a thing and sit around and wait for it to come back, and maybe it'll fail, and then you have to revert the first thing. So it just makes writing applications and using them much harder.
Hold on. So so this needs to be solved by the coders building the application.
This can't be solved. This is a fundamental trade.
It can't be solved. It's the problem with legacy payments is they aren't composable.
So
this, by the way, this is why you have things like a 2 or 3 day settlement period, right?
Yeah,
because this is exactly why.
It's why interchange exists with credit cards. It's why fraud risks exist. It's because legacy payments aren't composable.
Okay, so what's it going to break on Ethereum? It's going to break something.
The whole premise, in my
DeFi,
opinion. Yeah,
in a nutshell.
DeFi.
Yeah.
Okay, so why? Does that mean it's not going to happen, or is this a big debate?
I think it'll come down to it, and they'll walk back from the brink and not go the sharding
Would you say
model.
Ethereum is on the brink?
I mean, other smart contract chains are selling against this, right? So
exactly.
like Solana's whole thing is they're going for composability. They're not going for the sharding model.
And then you have chains like Near that have already deployed the sharding, and I don't think it's super popular. I don't think there's been a ton of uptake. I want to make one other point, which
but
is...
hold on. If it breaks smart contracts...
Composability,
sorry. Why would it even be considered if this is ETH?
Right. So the answer is scalability, right? So there is a limit to how many transactions you can put through a single chain. So just one really important point. This problem already exists, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because we have multiple chains and because we have rollups and layer 2 stuff now. It's precisely the same problem, right? You now have these towers or these islands, these silos, I guess would be the word for it.
It predates blockchains,
yes,
right?
Exactly.
This is like a problem with payments.
Yeah.
Is if you want efficiency, you need deferred settlement. That's the fundamental payments trade-off.
There's no squaring the circle. So this is a fundamental trade-off.
We sort of rediscovered this in blockchain.
We're rediscovering a lot of things in blockchain.
But if it breaks one of the USPs of Ethereum,
the killer feature,
then it changes Ethereum. Then what does Ethereum become with it? Is it just a more complicated Bitcoin?
This is the whole journey of crypto.
Oh, God.
We're rediscovering.
Hold on, I have to emphasize the point there because somebody listening will be like, it's not Bitcoin. I know that, but does it just become money and not smart contracts?
I think that the whole journey here is, someone summarized this by saying that crypto bros are learning the lessons of that finance learned over decades, right? In fast forward, that's kind of what's happening.
Right.
So
okay.
The short answer is it becomes more like, to Nick's point, the kind of existing financial system.
So if they do get through sharding, what's after that?
So statelessness is a big thing on the roadmap, right? This is the purge, I think, right? So the idea is that running a node now takes hundreds of gigabytes of data. A lot of cruft from years ago, spam attacks and things in the past, and there's no reason for nodes to need to store all this data. So there are pretty advanced techniques involving things called Verkle trees and that's another fun branding thing, that basically just advanced cryptography that means that you don't need to store all of the legacy data to run a validator. So again, this is in the interest of kind of making it as easy as possible to run a node or run a validator. And then later phases like the splurge thing, once we've done this and we've cleaned things up and we've streamlined things, then you can add more fun stuff in the future.
It sounds like a project that's going to take decades.
Yeah. It's been almost a decade.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the revolution never ends. What would they have to live for if they weren't continually?
I never thought about it in those terms, but wow, that's a powerful idea.
I mean, you've just described the opposite of every reason I like Bitcoin.
I was thinking,
simplicity.
That's the beauty of it is now we can really compare the two.
I was thinking on the way over here that I think you guys would probably agree if I said Ethereum is on the order of 10 times more complicated than Bitcoin, right? If you figure smart contracts and EVM, right? So that's
way more.
So wait for it. So this is old Ethereum, right?
Okay.
So now we have 2 Ethereums, right? So we have the execution layer and the consensus layer. So that's doubled again. So now we're at 20x or 30x, right? And then on top of that, you now get to add MEV, which we haven't even gotten into. And I think MEV is another order of magnitude of complexity here.
Yeah, I've seen some conversations about that it can be gamed and it means you can front run things. And
so we're getting into keeping up with Ethereum today now feels like being a doctor, right? You know how you can't be an expert in medicine, right? You can be an expert cardiologist. You have to have a narrow specialty because the field of medicine advances too quickly. And even within a field like cardiology, I think you probably have to be a specific type of cardiologist today if you want to keep up with the science as it advances. So this is kind of the level. I'm just trying to lay the foundation here. This is the degree to which Ethereum has become complicated. And guess what? That also makes it feel more like legacy stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas Bitcoin is still Bitcoin. It's still simple. You can explain Bitcoin to someone thoroughly in an hour.
Yeah, and it works. And it doesn't seem to have a lot of the issues that, say, Ethereum has with things. Well, let's be fair to it. It doesn't seem to have as large an attack vector.
For sure.
Attack surface, sorry. And I mean, like I'm not far from a technical person, but I feel comfortable where I am with Bitcoin. I've never felt comfortable with Ethereum, and I feel even less comfortable.
You should
with
feel less comfortable today. That's my point.
I can't see it. It feels like about as safe as keeping my money in pound coins. Okay, right. So, why did they do this?
Who is they, and what's the this?
People Vitalik and his mates. Why did they do this? What was the reason to do this?
For the proof of stake, the
whole thing, or this entire roadmap? Is it because Ethereum 1 just could not scale?
I think the sort of one sentence answer to your question is it's a better Bitcoin. That's always been kind of Vitalik's vision since the beginning, and I think it's important to note that proof of stake, like the fundamental outlines of this roadmap have not changed since 2013, 2014. It hasn't changed. The details have changed, but the fundamental
white paper.
It was even before the white paper.
It's forecasted. Vitalik's view is that proof of stake gives you more configurability, a greater design space.
Cheaper security, more security.
Yeah, they think it's cheaper. I certainly would dispute that, but yeah.
Do you think he believes it's better than a better Bitcoin or a different cryptocurrency?
The way I've heard Vitalik describe Ethereum is that versus Bitcoin and other kind of single purpose chains is that Ethereum is the general purpose platform. It's like the smartphone to Bitcoin's Swiss Army knife, or to this, each individual chain, that arose, like the colored coins and the name coin and all this kind of stuff. Like they were each like adding a feature to the Swiss Army knife, whereas Ethereum is just kind of this general purpose thing that can do everything. So it is in at least in one specific computer science sense, which is the fact that it's a Turing complete virtual machine, which you can run anything on. At least in that respect, it is strictly better than Bitcoin. Again, I'm talking about this one dimension. Of course, there's a cost here in terms of complexity and security and things.